Hello and welcome to our webcast for March 22, 2019. My name is Christian Debré and this is Amy Asbrook, the director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
Also joining us is Taylor Hyatt, our outreach coordinator and policy analysis.
Hi, everyone.
So, Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of like practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. Today's topics. Disability discrimination is more than ignorance. The second one is Royal Society of Canada speaker promotes euthanasia expansion.
Meow.
And promote, not just...
Yeah, not just tolerate.
Yes.
Okay, so our first topic is disability discrimination is more than just ignorance. This week, we saw a commentary posted on Facebook by Emma Vanderclift and Norm Kuntz from the Broadreach Training and Resource Organization, looking at how people see disability discrimination compared with other kinds of prejudice. The commentary described an interaction between Norm and service employees triggered by an error in his flight reservation, which had him booked to Portland, Maine, rather than Portland, Oregon.
Oh, just an error of 5,000 kilometers.
Right next door.
Yeah.
The employees who were only trying to help questioned whether Norm had the capacity to travel and if he knew where he was going. Are you sure you know where Oregon is?
The bizarre thing is he's from Vancouver, which is close to Oregon.
Yeah.
And so Portland, Oregon is a big city, and Portland, Maine is a kind of rather small city.
Yeah, and I have no idea how the travel agent made the mistake in the first place, but anywho.
Was Emma with him at the time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And, even if she were, that would have just gotten into the issue of they would talk to Emma instead.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid they were also going to do.
Yeah, no, I think he was by himself, so that's good. At least they had to talk to him.
Yeah.
Even if they did it in a poor and inappropriate manner. Okay, so Norm and Emma noted that if a person acts on the belief that women or people of color are less intelligent or capable than men or whites, this is correctly seen as sexism or racism. But if a person behaves as though disabled people are less intelligent or capable, this is called a lack of education. That's not okay.
That's not okay at all.
Yeah. They pointed out this double standard and talked about why it's important to call such behavior what it really is, discrimination. It's not just lack of education. Norm and Emma talked about the link between sympathy and prejudice. Though these two ideas may seem to be opposites, sympathy and prejudice often exist together. The authors gave the example of a person who received a sympathy card on the birth of a child with Down syndrome, as if that were a tragedy. And that's an incredibly obnoxious thing to do, send a card like that.
Yeah.
God. Cross that person off your Christmas list.
Yeah. Don't send a card to them anymore.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what I would do, in a situation like that. It was like, would I tear up the card and send it back in little pieces, or
would you get them a sympathy card? Sorry, you're such a jerk right now.
Yeah. People who show this form of prejudice believe deeply that they are right, which justifies their arrogant and condescending behavior. And
there is the difference. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you send a card and saying, I congratulate you for this birth, but we are sorry that your child is
no,
handicapped.
that's not okay.
That's not okay.
That's not okay.
The other one way could be, we congratulate you, but I'm sure that you had preferred that your child had been with no handicap.
No, you don't want to say that.
No.
Could you explain why to people?
Because the idea is, when you say it would have been better, you're saying that the child is not okay as it is. And you're giving a negative message about the child.
Even if you had any child, is always a blessing.
Yes.
Okay.
Regardless of whether the child has a disability.
So people could understand well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So any objection to such kindness is seen as proof that the disabled person doesn't know what they need and has a bad attitude.
I almost had an incident like this last weekend. So when I got to church last Sunday, I found myself stuck in a big crowd of people. They were leaving the service that ended, and I wanted to get to mine to start on time. I found my way out of the traffic jam, but not before a guy I didn't know reminded me to say thank you to all the nice people who moved, because I was going through this crowd. Excuse me. So really, dude, I was being polite. Don't infantilize me, please. Yeah.
That's when you want to be in your motorized wheelchair and run over their feet. Yeah, okay. If the airline employee really didn't have any preconceived ideas about the disabled person, the interaction would show them the truth, that in this case, Norm was capable and knew where he was going. The fact that the non-disabled person didn't respect his answers to her questions means that there was more going on than simple ignorance. And that's usually what's happening.
Yeah.
Say it's just a question of education. They just didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually really surprised between Norm's story and, for those of you who follow Bill Peace's blog, he posted something along those lines recently as well. And I'm really surprised that I haven't been caught up in something like that. But then again, I normally travel with my walker, not my chair, and I'm probably closer to passing than those guys are.
You know, and it's also just the luck of the draw, because both Norm and Bill are older than you are, so they've had opportunities to be crapped on. But
yep, I'll probably get it eventually.
Okay, so let's see. Where was I? Oh, here I am. Let's see. Disabled people are encouraged to be understanding and patient in the face of such prejudice. We're supposed to excuse bad behavior because it's done with good intentions. And I cannot tell you the number of times people have said, well, don't get upset. They didn't mean to be, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well.
And they're done that.
This is not true for people of color. And women sort of have a mixed bag. They're sometimes accused of being bitchy or having no sense of humor if they challenge sexist behavior. And that's happened to me as well. Also, third parties are expected to call out racism, sexism, and homophobia when they witness it, but they're not necessarily expected to call out negative treatment of people with disabilities. And if we fail to be patient and understanding, we are seen as maladjusted and expressing our bitterness about being disabled, because we have a chip on our shoulder, of course. What should be understood as a political interchange is transformed into evidence of a disabled person's individual inability to cope. So that happens a lot around discrimination and oppression. When something is a problem with the system, it gets turned into a problem of the individual. And we have to always try to remember to not let that happen. So the anger that women and people of color feel in response to discrimination is seen as appropriate reaction to the harm of bigotry. And it's an important first step in changing the dialogue and bringing about social justice. Yeah. So it's a good thing. Being angry is okay. It is okay.
Yes.
Norm and Emma quoted international mediator Adam Kahane, who worked with the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and he said, when we talk politely, we are following the party line, trying to fit in, and so keep the social system whole and unchanged, even though the system may be diseased and counterfeit. Diseased, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, well. When somebody speaks personally, passionately, and from the heart, the conversation deepens, which is true. Politeness also supports the status quo and shows that the status quo is working well enough to keep the disadvantaged group in their place. So that's another reason to not always go along with the polite.
A place to a group, it's to put a group to its place.
Right.
It's not the same.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
When disabled people refuse to be polite, we're not bitter or ungrateful. We're saying the status quo doesn't work for us.
And it's normal to do that.
Right. But people don't get it. The question is how to be impolite in a way that enables the dominant culture to understand that the status quo no longer works for them either. And that is really tricky. And I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing out questions here. Norm and Emma note that you can only foster insight through dialogue, but first you have to get their attention. And that's one of the functions of anger. Assertiveness is an individual solution. It takes finding a balance between going ballistic and going limp. It's possible to use, manage, and direct anger to speak the truth about what's happening, but it can be hard to harness the anger that comes from a lifetime worth of discrimination. Letting out a little at a time, using it with the pressure of unresolved hurts pushing from underneath can be like trying to take a teaspoon of lava from a volcano.
And I spent most of the day trying to keep my volcano from going off, and that it can be hard. So kudos to everyone who is able to keep their heads at times like that.
Yeah. And, usually it isn't the person that you're dealing with on the phone. It's just that person is just they're
a stand-in
for the system that is broken.
Yeah.
And that's no fun for them either. On the other hand, people who are disabled from childhood are taught to be compliant, to not recognize when their rights are being trampled on. So it can be hard to figure out when and how much to react. And that's another difficulty that disabled folks run into. So
many people don't want to speak.
Right. So the trick is to use your anger to give you some energy, state clearly what you need, and then it may be impossible to resolve the situation with the person you're dealing with. Their mind might be too closed, so be prepared to start over again with a supervisor.
Yeah, you start from scratch.
Yeah, exactly.
A second time, sometime a third time, sometime a fourth time.
Right, and then you're getting more and more pissed off, and you don't want to dump it on the next person, but really it's frustrating.
Yes, it is.
If assertiveness is the individual option, what is the collective solution? Another one of those questions I'm throwing out because I don't know the answers.
I don't know either.
Okay, one idea is to work within the system as long as it brings results, and then go outside the system with direct action or protest. And when I was at the Independent Living Center in Boston, the state budget had basically cut by 2/3 the personal assistance services, and we tried as many options as we could think of to change that. And when that was not successful, we camped out in the State House. So we worked within the system. It didn't work. So we went outside the system and that worked. That was interesting. The other is a good cop, bad cop technique where two disability activist groups works the same issue at the same time. One group represents mainstream values and asks nicely, while the other group makes demands and takes direct action to get results.
Okay. The only thing that it could be a little bit tricky with the thing is, at the end, if there is a vote to do,
right,
you have to make sure that both will vote the same side.
Yeah, and that's,
which is not guaranteed.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's important. And then, are there any other options? I don't know. Again, I'm throwing out these questions for people to suggest answers. And finally, how do we balance honesty with the need to get our message across when we're working on the issue of assisted suicide and euthanasia? Even the words we use sometimes make people uncomfortable. When talking about hastened death, what does it mean to say assisted suicide and euthanasia, or medical aid in dying,
which is an euphemism,
or death with dignity, which is a big fat lie?
Yeah.
You know, what do those terms mean? What does it mean to use those terms?
Propaganda.
Right.
Yeah.
So are disability activists who oppose assisted suicide and euthanasia too aggressive? In her article, Views of Disabled People Regarding Legalized Assisted Suicide Before and After a Balanced Informational Presentation, Dr. Carol Gill cites a New Mobility magazine survey in 1999 that found that 37% of disabled supporters of assisted suicide said they feared criticism from other disabled people for expressing their views. In another study, 53% of respondents believed a disabled person would experience criticism from other disabled people if they expressed support for assisted suicide. So is that really true, or is that just their fears? I mean, it's hard to know. They're saying, I'm afraid I might be criticized, but it's hard to know if they really would be, or if they are just misunderstanding the arguments around assisted suicide. Hard to know.
Yes.
So it's possible that the assisted suicide and euthanasia opponents are too aggressive. It's possible that it's not. Laura, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I would have thought that the numbers would be higher for people being criticized for being against assisted suicide. But given what we know about the stances of other major disability organizations, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, in the United States, most of the mainstream disability rights organizations, and that's a key word, disability rights organizations, groups that are by and for people with disabilities, oppose assisted suicide. But there's still plenty of groups that are sort of philanthropic based or identified by the disability, that haven't taken a position or are in favor of assisted suicide. So cancer groups, some other disability specific groups. So it's mixed, but here in Canada it's much more divided between people who support and people who oppose assisted suicide. As Emma and Norm pointed out, disabled people get tired of having to always educate the public, take on barriers and confront social bigotry. We need to be aware that taking a break sometimes, though necessary, is a luxury that not everyone with a disability can afford. There's no rule that says we have to beat down every barrier and patiently persuade every person who pummels us with pity. But when we do, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the disabled people who follow along after us. So when we have the energy, it's probably a good idea to do it.
Yeah.
If we can. And when we don't, we can just hide in our little houses and yeah. Okay. The second topic is Royal Society of Canada speaker promotes euthanasia expansion.
And the key word is promote.
Yes. And we don't generally air the other side, but I think it's important sometimes to know what they're doing.
Explain or announce or something like that. Promote.
Right. She's pushing it.
Yeah.
Jocelyn Downey praised the progress on providing access to medical killing during a lecture earlier this month on behalf of the Royal Society of Canada. Dr. Downey is a faculty.
Seems serious.
Yeah. Dr. Downey is a faculty associate of the Health Law Institute at Dalhousie University, a member of the Royal Society of Canada, and a prominent advocate for assisted suicide and euthanasia in Canada. Dr. Downey spoke to about 40 people and the topic was entitled
40 ordinary people or
well, 40 partisans, people who supported assisted suicide.
Okay.
And the topic was medically assisted dying, next steps for Canada, in Ottawa on March 15th, focusing on making assisted suicide and euthanasia available to more people with fewer restrictions.
Suicide for everybody. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that's really what they're doing, then just do it. You know, so
yeah.
It's not what they're doing. And, you know, they don't want to be honest about it.
I mean, they said they wanted to hold consultations with clinicians and average Canadians and other experts to see what the law should be changed to.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they're going to do.
Right. I mean, see, the thing is that Not Dead Yet has always taken the position that if suicide were available equally to everybody and we didn't have a policy to prevent suicides, that would be fine. But that's not what they're proposing.
They want to kill only handicapped people.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Downey said the definitions of some terms in the statute, that's Bill C-14, imposed unconstitutional barriers on people who want assisted suicide and euthanasia, including what is a qualifying medical condition and the requirement that the person's death be reasonably foreseeable. She said the definition of a grievous and irremediable medical condition in Bill C-14 improperly goes beyond the terms used in the 2015 Carter decision. By requiring that the illness or disability be incurable or in an advanced state of irreversible decline. Essentially what she's saying is that the Parliament shouldn't have added anything to the Carter decision. They should have stopped at the edge of the Carter decision. They had no right to go beyond it.
Yeah, but it is the job of the government to do that.
Right, exactly. It's Parliament's job to legislate. And they made decisions to achieve the goals of the law, and that's what their job was. So she's kind of, you know, whistling in the dark. She also called the reasonably foreseeable death requirement unconstitutional and said she hopes the courts hearing the Lamb and Truchon and Gladue cases would reach the same conclusions. She said that the Attorney General of Canada should not be defending these provisions of the medical assistance in dying.
This is his job.
Yeah.
That's what he had to do. That's the law.
Right. But basically she was saying, well, he shouldn't be doing it, which is ridiculous. And she's a lawyer. She should know better. She should know better. Dr. Downey seemed disappointed that the Attorney General is not planning to propose any amendments to expand eligibility following the release of the Council of Canadian Academies reports last December.
We spoke about it.
Right. We did 4 webcasts on it.
4 episodes.
Yes. She expressed her hope that the Royal Society of Canada would recommend extending eligibility to mature minors, to incompetent people via advance directives, and to people who ask for assisted suicide and euthanasia based on mental illness. So expanding. Dr. Downey.
It's not a slippery slope.
It's
a cliff.
It's a cliff, yeah. Dr. Downey described a multifaceted strategy, including federal and provincial legislation, court challenges, and providing direct services to doctors and individuals to increase the number of providers and to make the assessment process easier. This includes training volunteers to act as witnesses to a euthanasia request and proposals to ease the capacity requirement. So, maybe the person doesn't have to quite have such a high level of capacity. And again, she's part of Compassion and Choices, and they do not actually go to people's houses and kill them like the Final Exit Network
does.
But
they send somebody else to do that.
No. What they do is they take people's calls. They say, yes, we can help you with everything. They find the doctor who will do it. They help the person make all the arrangements. They, do all the running around. They, encourage the person in their decision and
promote the decision.
And, they don't, supposedly they don't, push the person into the decision, but if you're only hearing one side of the argument and you're feeling ambivalent, which most people who are suicidal are ambivalent, and you're only hearing one side of the argument, then, it's kind of pushy.
Yeah. And at the end, there is a kind of, not a link, but something relating between what is the name again?
Homicide.
No, the following Hemlock Society.
Hemlock Society.
The Final Exit
Network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they are doesn't have any link between those.
Right. Well.
Yeah.
Well, the Final Exit Network is more extreme than Compassion and Choices and the Hemlock Society was.
Yeah, but they kind of link together quite a lot.
So a lot of their priorities are in the same vein.
Yeah.
She said there is no indication that ineligible people are being euthanized, that safeguards are being ignored, or that there was a slippery slope, despite the fact that nearly 8,000 euthanasia have been recorded through December of 2018. No one in the friendly audience challenged these claims, though they were obviously false. And you can see our statistical report and the webcast from December 14th, 2018.
This is unbelievable how blind they are. Because
hey, I'm blind and I can ignorant.
Okay. Ignorant.
Willfully ignorant.
Yes.
And the trouble is, there is a report from Quebec, an official report from the group who is supposed to survey and verify euthanasia in Quebec.
Yeah.
And they said there is 3 people who was murdered in 1 year, but close to 200 people who are doubtly okay.
Well, a total of about 171 cases were not recorded properly. They were not reported by doctors. So they know the people were euthanized.
Yeah, but
the doctors never reported them.
And this
So we
is
don't know what happened.
Yeah, that this is doubtly thing, and we don't know how much because it doesn't report. Doctor who have do it without reporting anything.
Right.
So, and they say, no, nothing going wrong, nothing wrong. Tout va très bien, Madame la Marquise, tout va très bien,
Yep.
tout va très bien. Yeah.
Okay. Three more small things. Another remark she made was that she doesn't want to call assisted suicide because then that would drive suicide rates up.
Oh no, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
People might think that there were actual suicides happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I take a small issue with the idea that nobody challenged some of her claims, because I did try to peg her on a couple of those things, and especially the mental illness one, the link between depression and all you see as your way out is ending it all.
Mhm.
And then the third one was, one, we don't have compassion and choices here in Canada, but we do have dying with dignity. And is Dr. Downey officially affiliated with them?
I looked and I could not see any official affiliation. She's not on their board, but she is frequently mentioned in their newsletter. So I don't think she might be a member.
Right.
She isn't on their board. So who knows? But certainly she, if you go to her CV on the web, there's a link to a page on, medical assistance in dying in Canada. And it's all about promoting medical assistance in dying in Canada. So, and, if you check the links, if you do a search on her name and medical assistance in dying, it's all speeches or presentations or papers she's written that support assisted suicide and euthanasia.
Yeah, it's not information. It is
right.
Completely.
Well, I don't claim to be neutral on this topic.
No, we are not neutral. Okay,
right.
But we doesn't claim to be neutral. But they claim that they give information.
Well,
that's not true.
Yeah, and that's the question: is the Royal Society of Canada appropriately giving her the platform to speak? And hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she spoke about for the in the way of their name.
Yeah, under their banner. So.
Yes. So. Yeah.
Well, she's a member of a member of the Royal Society of Canada.
Yes, but they doesn't ask us or any other opponent to speak as opponent.
Right.
Right.
Right. Okay. So for more information on the subjects that we talk about here, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet, all one word. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out, as well as to Taylor. And thank you all for being there. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.